Hello everyone, I am an Above Average Panda, and today we're quite possibly going to go hollow by attempting something that a games journalist once told me was unreasonably difficult. What is this thing, I hear you ask, even though this is a video and you didn't ask? Getting every single achievement in Dark Souls Remastered. Now, I write this section of the script before even starting the challenge, so how many times am I going to die while I attempt this? My guess is 50. Comment down below your guess. Mine is 50, and for some unknown reason, two of my friends think the answer is 7. Anyway, the journey began as all good journeys do, in a prison cell waiting for the world to end, when out of nowhere we get an Uber delivery we didn't order because the guy in the next cell didn't want the Kentucky Fried Corpse, freaky included. Oh well, they didn't want their freedom, so we'll take it instead. After leaving our cell, we have a nice sit down at a bonfire where we get our first achievement for doing just that, having a sit down and taking time to contemplate the meaning of life. It's 42. After falling asleep at the bonfire, we're introduced to the warden, collect our shield, axe, meet the Uber driver who's not got long for this world, alongside our second achievement for getting our drink, retrieve a pyromancy flame, and ask the warden if we can leave. He said no, so we set him on fire and flew away from the prison to get our third achievement, arrive in Lordran, which we did by way of Massive Bird. I'll name him Bird. And now that we're in Lordran, after taking a moment to level up at the bonfire, I talked to the local populace, an apathetic warrior and a cleric who told me to go away. I didn't, so he tried to bribe me to go away. Little did he know that this was the worst thing he could do, because now I would talk to him just to see what lengths he would go to try and get rid of me. He asked me to join his covenant. I left at speed to go run into the crypt, where I would meet not just my first, but my second and third death of the run. Although I did manage to get my weapon of choice by dropping to my knees at the altar of Papa Nito and pledging my allegiance to his covenant. With my allegiance sworn to Nito, I departed the crypt by way of death, as it was much faster than figuring out the layout of this place. The game's been out for 12 years at this point, and I still don't know my way around here. Anyway, once I was back at Firelink Shrine, I made my way down to the undead church, but before I could get there, I was rudely interrupted by a demon that lacks a face. Mistakenly thinking he drops a weapon I need for a later achievement, I attacked him, and I definitely killed him my first try, and luckily got the weapon. If only I knew I didn't need it. Before making my way up to the church roof to deal with a set of gargoyles and ring a bell, I made a detour to both cook some bacon and make a friend, Solar. I can't promise you won't die as a result of being my friend, but I can promise that if you do, I'll make it quick. With friendship acquired, I made my way back to the church and ascended to its roof, where I was immediately knocked back down to the earth by a gargoyle. The second attempt went much smoother, and with Gargoyle 1 and Gargoyle 2 down, I rang the bell for Achievement 6. And on that note, it was time to descend to a wonderful location known as Blighttown to ring the second bell, but first I had some things to attend to, one of those things being casual murder. You might be wondering why, and I could take this opportunity to tell you, but instead, I'll tell you that I decided I needed to atone for the crime of murder by returning to the asylum by way of Bird. Why? I needed a chat with the warden's replacement and his new guards about the treatment of our Uber driver, picking up a titanite slab, a doll, a ring, and a shield in the process. But with that done, my options for delaying my inevitable trip down to Blighttown were dwindling, and instead of putting it off any further, I pulled the trigger and said a great hello to Qualag, who sent me back to Firelink Shrine, not once, but twice, before I fell the great beast of temptation and rang the bell she was guarding. And to add insult to injury, I broke through a non-existent wall to say a significantly less great hello to her sister, netting me the achievement for ringing the second bell and finding the Chaos Servant's Covenant. On that note, I needed to head back topside to rescue a sorcerer, a pyromancer, and ensure that the clerics went underground for an unsuccessful meet and greet with Papanito, and once that was done, I could enter into the fortress opened up by the second bell of awakening, where I would assist a rotund fellow in getting to the top and rescue a man with a truly massive hat to compensate for his Upon rescuing Large Cap Logan, I made my way to the top of the Fortress of Fun, fell back down to the bottom, ascended once more and got crushed by a rock. Twice, before finally making it up to the roof, only to make a giant have a tantrum and then kill a golem before getting kidnapped and transported by the Dark Souls equivalent of the Venga bus to deliver me to my next achievement, reach Anor Londo, the City of the Gods. Note for editing, Panda. Do not include this in the video. Remember to write something convoluted about how you lost the save and reconstructed it to get back to Anor Londo. So anyway, now that we've arrived in the City of the Gods, it's time to cut down not one, but two more stone-plated gargoyles, best the Anor Londo archers, and have a moment with Solar, who seems to think that there's something there between us. If only I could be so grossly incandescent. After spending a moment with Solar, I headed up through the main cathedral, making use of a rather unique shortcut that would skip more than half of the area to get to the twins, Onsen and Small, significantly faster. One of them is a tall and lanky lad, the other is a rotund, cannibalistic madman. They killed me once, much like a Silver Knight on the run back with his stupid spear. Fortunately, on the second attempt, I cut down the round boy and ended the life of the lanky lad Ornstein. Then, I'd attempt and failed to successfully use an elevator before being presented with what can only be described as an amazing chest and two achievements, one for getting the Lord Vessel and one for dropping to my knees at the altar of that amazing chest. Despite the fact I wanted to stay, I have other achievements to gather, and so I reluctantly left to go find a friend donning an onion-shaped helmet and a giant blacksmith, before teleporting back to the undead parish to pick up a seal so I could meet a talking cat who lied to me. I shouldn't be surprised, it's a cat after all, but hey, at least I got yet another achievement, this time for finding the Talking Cat's Covenant, which I joined, and immediately disrespected the Golden Rule and went straight to the grave of Artorias, where I'd find only the goodest of boys, Sif, the great grey wolf, who was only protecting his master's grave. I had to put him down, and if it weren't for Knight's honour, this would be the only time. Instead, we have to put the good boy down twice more. But moving on before I get sad, we got the achievement for gaining the ability to traverse the abyss, which means we can now get one of the 4 big bosses down. See, now that we have the Lord Vessel, we have the ability to go battle the 4 kings, the Bed of Chaos, Sif the Scaleless, and Papanito. Incidentally, that's also the order we're going to be taking them down. So, to New Londo we go. Grab the key to the seal, break the seal, find a very large ember to enable the maxing out of our gear, and then plunge myself into the abyss, where I'd immediately get flattened by one of the 4 kings. I shall name him Dave, and on my second attempt, not only did I best Dave in single combat, but all 4 kings to unlock the achievement for doing just that. I'd also meet a primordial serpent who would induct me into the Covenant of the Dark Wraith, and then proceed to vore me without my consent.
Mouth.
As a positive, he did bring us to the kiln of the first flame where we could place the Lord Vessel, and I have to say, considering the size of this thing in relation to my character, actually, best not think about that, and just make our way back down to Blighttown and head towards the Bed of Chaos, which means it's time to pick up and then lose a parasite before starting the Gauntlet of Demons, starting with Ceaseless Discharge, followed up by the 3rd iteration of the Asylum Demon, this time with fire, a giant flaming centipede, and then a chat with the majestic Solar, who unfortunately appears to be losing faith in his quest to find his very own son. Don't worry, my friend. I believe you'll find your son. I didn't really want to leave him in his time of need, but the bed of chaos needed to be put out, and so I did just that, even though it killed me 6 times. Fortunately, I'll only have to come to this god-forsaken place once more after this, but for now, I need to check on Solar before we head to the archives. Solar, when I said you'll find your son, this isn't what I meant, Solar. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left you. But, hey, at least I got a nice new hat. I'm sad now, let's skip to the archives. In the archives we find our next target, Seeks the Scaleless. Only, in our first encounter with the dragon, he's immortal, and as such, cannot take any damage. So, he kills us with barely any effort on his part, but not to worry, as this reunites us with Large Hat Logan, who we once again free from a cell. I'm starting to think this is a thing, Logan. Stop getting yourself captured so I can save you. After breaking myself and Logan out of prison once more, I entered Seif's cave of invisible pathways and touched the source of his immortality, beginning a side quest to perform a telectomy, and this was pain. This was like reaching down to grab the last few Pringles out of the tube as he turned and turned, forever denying me the opportunity to even strike the tail to the point where he was one hit from death and it was still attached. Alas, upon re-entering the game, I managed to revoke the dragon's tail and life. With Seif down, that leaves us with one more target, Papa Nito. He who gave us this glorious bendy sword, my patron, and it was time to make our way down to the catacombs to face him in single combat. But before we can do that, we need to pick up the Rite of Kindling from arguably one of the easiest bosses in all of gaming, Pinwheel. It went down in 3 strikes and dropped the Mask of the Mother, along with the Rite of Kindling achievement. Now that Pinwheel's down, it's time for us to venture into the Tomb of the Giants, where I realised something. Due to my overwhelming sadness at the death of Solar, I didn't pick up a rather important item. The Sunlight Maggot. This would have made traversing the tombs so much easier, but we pressed on in the darkness, falling victim to gravity and angry skeletons before finding a bonfire to rest at. Unfortunately, this rest would be short-lived, as we would encounter the one and only trusty Patches, who proceeded to knock me off a cliff because I lied and told him I was a cleric. Fortunately, due to the fact we were effectively immortal, we survived and were reunited with Rhea, a cleric from much earlier on in the video. Sadly, her associates had hollowed out because of Patches, and they had to be put down like the rabid dogs they had become. Rhea thanked us for freeing them from their suffering with a miracle, and we returned to have a conversation with Patches. Patches, however, was not feeling a conversation and went straight for murder. This was fine by me, and I put him down like the vile creature he was before moving on to fight my patron, the last of the 4 lords, in single combat. Papa Nito, upon dropping into his arena, we bore witness to his magnificent form before cutting him down with the very weapon he gave us at the start of this journey. And with the acquisition of his achievement and his life being expunged, there was only 2 things left to do. Drop off the Lord's souls at the Lord Vessel and clean up. And by clean up, I mean running around Lordran and picking up the remaining covenants we have yet to encounter and catching up with some of our friends. Although they aren't in the best shape. For example, Large Hat Logan has lost his mind, and when we linked back up with him to pick up a few sorceries, he was stood there in nothing but his massive hat and tighty whities, trying to murder us without a second thought. Or Griggs, the other sorcerer and Logan's apparent biggest fan. He's dead. I killed him, and picked up the achievement Wisdom of a Sage for collecting every sorcerer. Some of that wisdom came from murder. I also picked up Bond of a Pyromancer for collecting the remainder of the Pyromancies and set up to get Prayer of a Maiden in the 3rd and final cycle. Along with this, We also upgraded roughly half the available upgrade paths to their maximum potential, despite encountering some issues with the achievement popping. Then, we went on to perform the delicately difficult telectomy on the Hellkite Drake, the Toothy Dragon, and failing to do so on Priscilla, although I did kill her. Also, killed Gwendolyn and collected the remaining weapons and shields I could for Knight's Honour, and with that done, it was just a hop, skip, and a parry to the end of the game, where we'd fight Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, in what could have been an epic battle, but no, parry, riposte, and repeat, until it was time to get the first of two endings and usher in an age of dark and begin the next cycle. Now that we've ushered in an age of darkness after defeating the Lord of Cinder, we find ourselves back at the Undead Asylum, only this time we're armed to the teeth and can take on the Round Warden on our first encounter. Unlike last time, we cut him down with the Gravelord Greatsword and left shortly after to find that the world had been reset, and if the world had indeed been reset, that would mean Soleur's alive. It's better we don't meet him this time. Anyway, now that we're in the second cycle, we visited the Moonlight Butterfly to collect its soul for a second time, dispatched Sif as painlessly as possible, and rang both bells of awakening once more, before upgrading the fire, magic and divine weapon paths to their maximum potential. This would have included the crystal upgrade path, but upon my return to the Undead Asylum, I may have forgotten to pick up the slab to do so. Oh well, that'll be for the next cycle. With the next set of weapons upgraded, I paid Priscilla a visit and was successful in removing her tail. Unfortunately, she wasn't too happy about that because she trapped me in the painted world, making it so I couldn't homeward back to reality. Your death is on you, Priscilla, and not the fact that I couldn't do this in the previous cycle. With the tail acquired and Priscilla put down for a second time, I ventured a little lower to fight Gwendolyn for a second time, taking his soul to turn into a boar in the next cycle. Now that we had everything from this cycle, it was time to regain the Lord Vessel, killing Small second this time instead of Ornstein, and then moving on to the Big Four, and then Gwyn, to fulfill my ultimate destiny, to link the fire through self-immolation, which I did! Only to find myself back in the asylum once more, I broke out and then returned to kill the bigger asylum demon under the floorboards for the third time to upgrade the crystal weapon to its max potential. Picked up the last of both the Sunlight Medals and Eyes of Death to hand them off to the Covenant of Soleur and my patron Papanito respectively. Sorry I had to murder you twice, boss, but it was for the greater good of getting me the Prayer of a Maiden achievement. However, prior to getting my hands on the Prayer of a Maiden achievement, I made my way to Sif to help him along to the choir above for the third and final time before heading to Anor Londo to turn each and every boss soul I had collected into their respective weapons. The achievement didn't pop. I looked for a guide to see if anything was missed. Nope. Moving back along to moments after I had gotten the Prayer of a Maiden unlock, I decided to drop Priscilla's dagger and then pick it up. It popped. From beyond the grave, Priscilla decided to screw me, but with that unlock came the Dark Soul for getting all 41 achievements the game had to offer, and with that, the end of the achievement hunt. Now, back at the start of the video, I made a prediction about my death count. Reading back through the script, it seems I said 50 and two friends for some unknown reason said 7. In order to gain every achievement in Dark Souls Remastered, I died a grand total of